Jamie, welcome to the show.
Hey, good afternoon. You all good?
I'm good. I'm just wondering if we should trust this killing of public policy. I mean, was this doomed from the start, Jamie?
Yeah, well, when they first got announced, they were talking about this was going to stop the boats, wasn't it? And illegal immigration would be stopped by having digital ID. But I think within 24 hours, that started falling apart because we could see that many countries across Europe that have digital ID, they're struggling with illegal immigration as well. And the thought that having some digital kind of ID that you need to prove that you need to work is going to stop people coming and working in the black market was for the birds, I think. So I think what Burnham's done here is what we haven't heard him formally come out and say anything yet. Obviously, these are media reports, and Starmer had rode back a little bit previously to say that it wouldn't be mandatory, this digital ID, but they never budgeted for this. It was never in their manifesto. And maybe Burnham's just reading the room that there was that petition saying basically there was 3 million people opposing this. So he's probably reading the room and thinking, right, what things can I kick out that wasn't in the manifesto, that was unpopular under Keir Starmer, get rid of them early on so we can have a bit of a reset. That's probably what he's doing at the moment.
Yeah, I mean, it's no illusion that this was a woefully unpopular plan. It almost galvanised both the left and right together with how much they hated, you know, mother government coming in and wanting all their information and almost trying to tag every citizen so that the government could watch over them. That's kind of what it felt like. And Jamie, you're completely right to mention budget because the OBR previously costed the programme at £1.8 billion over 3 years that it was going to cost us. The government said it would be funded from existing departmental budgets, but they didn't identify those savings. So that kind of means that the scheme wasn't just controversial, but it was extremely expensive. The question is here, you know, it went from compulsory to then voluntary to then cancelled. So what's actually going to happen to that money? It's not really like we're going to get it back, but they shouldn't have ever put taxpayers' money at risk in the first place.
Yeah, well, that's one of the things the Labour government have been doing. They've been just spending like it's like there's plenty of money awash all the single time. But I think ultimately what you've got here is that we're still going to have some forms of ID in the system overall. You've got this one login, which is mandatory kind of digital system for directors, for company houses. There's talk of obviously digital licenses. So whilst he's saying he's scrapping the concept of digital ID, where you might have to prove that who you are so you can do certain things in society, we are going to continue to see that creep into more digitalised in the system. But the key concerns for me, which is why I was against digital ID from the start, is you obviously having the government with all one system and the potential for data leaks and people hacking into the system. And ultimately, it's freedom of choice. You shouldn't have to prove who you are using some digital record. So that's why it's a good thing that they've rode back on it, I think. But you still got that overhanging that social media ban, though. So if there's going to be a social media ban for younger people, are adults going to need to prove digitally who they are so that they can access the services that the youngsters can't? So there's still some confusion and some ambiguity in terms of what the public will need to do going forward for these other policies to be in place as well.
Yeah, it's a really good point, Jamie. And look, when you look at the things that he's sort of scrapping, the policies that he's putting in place, wanting to nationalise steel, which is actually a Reform Party policy, are these things that he's trying to do to appease the right wing of the country? Because in some ways, when I hear him talk, he's always kind of appeasing his party, which are, to be honest, a bunch of sort of lefty lunatics, especially the backbenchers. But it seems like he's actually sort of trying to play both sides. He's known as a political people pleaser. Is this just another people-pleasing move, or do you think he really does stand by it and doesn't want that sort of control?
Well, we've had the Starmer experiment, which was the Labour kind of metropolitan London type politician. And just, you know, if you go back to May, I live in Wales, and we saw the collapse of Welsh Labour, losing the Welsh Parliament and losing an election for the first time in 100 years. So he's got that tag of being somebody from the north. And where Reform have been tapping into is that kind of people in the north going over to Reform, people in Wales. So he's probably looking back to those, as he said in his speech today, those industrial heartlands. But this is where I think one of the big challenges of his premiership is going to be immediately there, because we've obviously got these net zero policies that Ed Miliband's been going for. And if you want to talk about kind of getting more industry back into the UK, well, ultimately, you look at our industrial energy prices, they're 4 times what they are in the USA. They're one of the highest, if not the highest, in Europe. So if you want to start creating things in this country, which I would support, it's good for jobs, it creates wealth, it stops money that we generate within this country going abroad on more imports. He's going to need an energy policy. I think Donald Trump's talking about him drilling in the North Sea again, which would be welcome if we can get our energy prices down. That remains to be seen at the moment. But he's going to have that big thing in terms of how do we appeal to the voters potentially who've gone to the Green Party who might not support that. So he's got to win basically the Green vote and the Reform vote back to the Labour Party if he's going to have any chance in the next general election.
I fear for him, honestly. It's the classic trying to please everybody and in the end pleasing absolutely nobody, which in a way Keir Starmer with his indecisiveness did have that problem and ultimately fell on the sword of not being able to decide what he's going to do. He was almost paralysed by it. And I think you're right. He is going to have to pick up a coalition of Greens and Reform voters with his policies because they are absolutely biting at the heels of Labour at the moment. So it's going to be a very, very tight rope to walk. Let's talk about foreign aid, something that we don't really know about in terms of Andy's position, in my opinion. You know, the right-wing philosophy right now is very much that we need to talk about Britain first. We've got issues back home. We're in a time of great austerity, not prosperity. Why are we giving billions and billions of pounds in foreign aid? I mean, just last year, the UK spent about 13 billion on official development assistance. What can you tell me about his stance on foreign aid or what you predict it might be?
Yeah, well, some of the Labour backbenchers are already talking and pushing for Andy Burnham to bring it back up to what was used to be 0.7% of our kind of gross national income. So that would mean that we're spending more than we currently have because there's been some cuts to the budget. Some of the budget is also used for the asylum system with all the people coming over on boats. So some of the money's been spent there. But I think you've got to lay bare, Samara, what's really going on with the public finances here. So since Labour have come in, they've borrowed £274 billion. Now, if we just take May alone, the latest figures, we get some new ones from the ONS out tomorrow. But in May, we borrowed £23.3 billion just in May and 11.7% debt interest. So when you look at those figures that we're borrowing across the country, can we afford to continue to just give money abroad? So the 13 billion you just talked about that we spent in 2025, if they go back to this 0.7% figure that was in previous years, that's another £8 billion on top. And it's a bit like, you know, if you're running a household and you can't afford to pay all your bills and you're paying, you know, borrowing on the credit card, will you though go and pay next door's bills as well? Would you go and give them money next door? That's ultimately the choices we've got to decide as a country. We're borrowing money to stand still, but we're giving money to the rest of the world. And I think if he starts trying to creep that foreign aid budget back up, that's really going to not be pleasant in terms of trying to get some of those reform voters back. But there are people on the left who would like them to increase and probably spend even more. So back to the earlier point there, how does he keep both sets of type of voters to get them back? That's the challenge he's going to have.
No, it's absolutely mental, Jamie, honestly, when you think about the amount of money we've been pouring into foreign aid while our defence budgets are being cut, while we're spending billions on housing asylum seekers, and those boats aren't stopping from those so-called war-torn countries, you do start to think, OK, what's going on here? And in the most recent case with Shabir Ahmed, who is the Rochdale grooming gang's leader, the way that Pakistan, a country that we have given several billions of our taxpayer dollars to, is blatantly refusing to take him back and disrespecting the British people and the British government in that process. I mean, what do you make of that? Is this something we will see more and more and more, the way that governments overseas can take and take and take, but when push comes to shove, they don't want to do their part of the deal and take, I don't know, criminals back or, you know, make sure that visas are, if we say that we're going to ban visas coming in from their countries, they're actually going to try and clamp down, because we also know that there was an airport scandal as well to do with the Pakistani government trying to lobby for another airport around the Manchester region. So it's all quite dark and insidious. You know, foreign aid sounds like a very flowery thing. Oh, giving money to poorer countries so that they'll be okay and so that they don't cause issues and create an influx of refugees onto our country. But it ends up kind of getting crossed into all types of situations. And to be honest, it can fuel corruption, can't it?
Yeah, and where a lot of this aid goes, how do you audit it? It's actually delivering what it's supposed to be doing on the ground. Some of the money goes to organisations, gets pooled with other countries' money. So it's very difficult to kind of ascertain what's going on. And on Pakistan, I think the interesting thing there, obviously, some money is channeled into Pakistan. We know that happened in the past quite a bit. Is that Pakistan is one of those countries which is quite surprisingly, it does top. But when you look at the old asylum system in the UK, the number one source of people claiming asylum is from Pakistan. Now, they're not very few of them are coming over on these boats. They're all coming legally, and then they're deciding to change and look for asylum before their visas run out, because they either come on study or work visas. And we know many hundreds of thousands go back and forth Pakistan, back and forth on holiday, visit family every single year. So to say it's not a safe country as well for the asylum system, just absolutely bonkers. And the government needs to get tough. Yeah, if you want to work with us, if you want to have visas, and if you want people to come back and forth for family and for holidays, then you could have to take these criminals back. Why should the taxpayer basically be paying for somebody whilst they're in prison, and now he's out, they can't deport him? It's absolute madness. So it'll be interesting to see who arrives now in the cabinet for Andy Burnham. We expect a new chancellor in particular, so we may go down a slightly different economic model to Rachel Reeves, but that's going to be coming out in the next 24 hours. I think that's the big thing now, is who's in the cabinet and who's not, because if people like David Lammy, for example, don't get in, will there be a bit of a revolt and people already plotting with the knives against Andy Burnham? Because in politics and in party politics, you can't please everybody all of the time.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Andy can please his way out of this one. Jamie Jenkins, thank you so much.